Hello and welcome everyone to this tax paper. We are going to talk about today the taxation paper for the ACCA. We used to call them F6, but now we call this one taxation. This is one of the important paper and the compulsory paper we have for the ACCA. So we'll start with this tax, and in future, when you do your final level, the professional level, you can choose the advanced taxation as well. So from here, we'll get all the knowledge that you need about the taxation, basically the rules, how you do the workings, the calculation part. You're going to learn everything from this paper. And in future, when you'll do your advanced taxation paper, then you're going to learn the implication. So how you're going to use this taxation for your client. So what will be the best advice based on different situation. For example, if you are a tax advisor and if a client come to you and ask you, this is my situation, what will be the best tax planning for me? So based on whatever you have learned from this paper and what you're going to learn from your advanced taxation in future, so that will give you the proper idea how to advise your client based on different situations. So we called it tax planning. Now, if you want to be a chartered accountant, it is necessary you should have a tax knowledge. But if you want to choose a side, for example, if you want to be a financial accountant, if you want to be a management accountant, in the future, you might choose not the taxation, but any other optional paper because you will have a choice. But for this paper, the taxation, you should have the knowledge from this paper because it's a compulsory, you don't have any choice. Now, if you become a chartered accountant without having the knowledge from the taxation system on that country, it will not make you complete. For that reason, I always advise to all my students, you should know the taxation regulation, the country you're going to work or your country you're going to practice. So when you are doing tax, make sure you learn it properly. And if you want to be a tax advisor, in future, you can choose your advanced taxation from the optional paper. That will help you a lot. From this paper, we're going to learn all the basic thing, the calculation part, and we're going to see how the workings need to be done, what type of tax is applicable for the person, for the business, how much is the tax rate, how much is the dividend tax rate. So we're going to learn everything from here, like capital gain tax, inheritance tax, VAT. We're going to learn everything from this paper. In future, when you will do your advanced taxation, on that time, you're going to learn not the calculation, but we're going to use the application of this tax. For example, they'll give you a different scenario. And based on the scenario, you have to advise your client. So they'll give you different scenario, and you will learn based on the situation, what type of advice you provide to your client. So in future, when you do your advanced taxation, you're not going to do any workings, but you're going to do the application side. From this paper, you're going to learn mainly the calculation. So how much tax is payable based on the different sort of income. So we're going to learn basically from the basic till advanced level. So let's have a look what we have in this paper. This paper is suitable for the people who is going to sit for the exam from June 2023 to March 2024. But still, you can use all the resources for your future exam as well, because in taxation, only few things change every year. So when you have April, in April, the HMRC published the new rules, and with the new rules, we see like maybe the personal allowance is changed, maybe the rate for the basic band is changed, maybe for the band for the additional rate or higher rate is changed, but except this thing, most of the things remain same. For that reason, so even if you start your study from last year, from Financial Act 2021, and you are planning to do the exam this year, that is Financial Act 2022, it still will be 90% okay with your old syllabus. All you have to know what changes with the rate and the band, and rest of the thing, you will be absolutely fine. So let's have a look what we're going to cover or what we're going to look at from this taxation paper, from this ACCA paper. So if you look at the chapter overview, so what we have here on the content. So there is a lot of things you can see the chapters we have here, but we're not going to cover everything. We're going to cover the main few areas. Now, when I said like main few areas, what does that mean? That means if we want to look at the syllabus, there are few main areas, and the breakdown of all that areas will create a lot of chapters. For example, if you look at the employment income, so you can look at only chapter number 3, but when you calculate the tax for a person, you're going to look at all this thing together. For example, if I try to see how much an individual person need to pay the tax based on their earning, so we need to look at their employment income, the property income, the dividend, and the savings income, everything together. So to calculate one income tax, we have to look at 4 areas. That means we are covering 4 chapters. So it's not like 4 chapters have a 4 different content and the topic. So basically, for one area, we have to cover more than 1 chapter. So for example, the main area we're going to look at, that is personal tax. That's the first thing. So personal tax. On the personal tax, we're going to cover everything about the individual, including the self-assessment and the tax payable. Then we're going to look at our business tax. Here we're going to look at how to calculate the corporation tax for the business. Very important, because when you will be an accountant, you not only going to provide the services to the individual, also you're going to provide the services to the business. The next one, you're going to look at the capital gain tax. And the capital gain tax can be for both, for the personal and for the business. And we're going to look at the VAT. So all of this thing will be our main area. And if we make the breakdown, that will be a lot of chapters, but make it very precise, make it very simple. You're going to cover only few areas. And when you study the taxation, remember always you are not learning all of this just to pass the exam, but also you want to learn it. You want to learn the taxation system in UK. So as an accountant, if you don't know the taxation system in UK, it will not make you complete. For example, if anyone from your friends and family, if they ask you like, oh, I earn this one, how much tax I'm going to pay? And if you cannot answer this one, they will think like what type of chartered accountant you are. So for that reason, we should have a very clear understanding about the basic taxation, the way we calculate the tax for the individual and for the business. So this is the chapters we have here. So you can see here we have a pension, property income, trading income, capital allowance, trading loss, partnership, national insurance, chargeable gain. Then we have a residential relief, business relief, share and security. We have a self-assessment for the self-employed, inheritance tax. It's a very important one. Always we see one question from the inheritance tax in the exam, and that gives us at least 10 to 12 marks. Very important, very interesting topic, not only for the exam, but also like how does it work. For example, if you know the inheritance tax, the way it is work, you can save a lot of tax, not only for the client, but also for yourself. And you can advise your friends and family. For example, you can tell like, okay, before you get old, you should give your asset as a gift or to your children, so that at least you can survive, or you can live at least 8 years or 7 years or 5 years. So you can give a different sort of explanation to your friends and family. Like for example, if you die and if your children get your property as inheritance, they have to pay 40% tax. And rather, why don't you give now and you pay 20% tax? Or if you give now as a pet, that is potential exam transfer, and if you don't die within 7 years, then there is no tax. So this sort of thing will help your friends and family and a lot of people from the taxation point of view, because so many people, they don't give their asset to the children until they die. And at the end, the children have to pay a lot of tax, or who going to inheritance, they will have to pay a lot of tax. How to transfer the nil rate band from the husband to wife and wife to husband, you're going to learn all of these things. It's a very interesting thing, obviously not only for the exam, but also like how this thing work. Then we have a chargeable gain for the company, group, and the VAT. So it's look like 25 or 26 chapters we have here, but to be honest, it's not too much. It's like only few areas: the personal tax and the business tax and the VAT. This is the three combination we have here, and all you have to know the rules. And when you learn it, we try to think like, okay, I am there. So if I am that person, how much tax I need to pay? And just think from the practical point of view, because whatever you're going to learn from here is all real thing, is happening every day from the HMRC point of view. So we are learning something that's happening every day in the real world. So that will make you like a lot of interested to know like how the people pay the tax. If someone is a very rich, if someone earning £1 million a year, how much tax he's paying. If someone earning only 50,000 a year, how much tax he's paying. When we have a child care benefit, when you have a charity, so how this is work, you're going to learn a lot of things. Let's look at quickly the exam thing, what we're going to see on the exam. So the exam, you have to score 50%. So you have to score 50%. So this is compared to the other exam we have, like, for example, other professional body we have, for example, 8, you have 70%, CIMA or ICW. Compared to that, 50% is quite reasonable. But to get 50%, it will not be very easy for you unless you know how to answer the question. Now, to pass this exam, you don't have to be too much clever. You don't have to be like know everything. You don't have to be like, oh, I have to answer 100%. No. The reason I'm saying this thing is a very important, the exam techniques. I have a student and they say so many times, I have a lot of students, they tell me like, I know everything. I know every single tax rules, but still I failed the exam. I don't know why. The reason they don't know why, because they don't know the exam techniques. Is a very important to know the exam techniques. When I say exam techniques, what does that mean? That means know your question. Know your question means like you need to know I have to score 50 first. So when you can score 50 first, you secure your pass. That means you already know you're going to pass the exam. So you make yourself a little bit relaxed, like, okay, I confirm 50. Now I'm going to answer rest of the question so that I can score more. But first, you need to make sure you secure 50. How you do that? That's the question. So that's the exam technique. So exam techniques means you know exactly question number 1, question number 2, question number 3. This question will be there. So you know, for example, you are very good on the employment tax. You are very good with the capital gain tax. You are very good with the inheritance tax, but you are not good with the capital allowance. So there will be 4 marks from the capital allowance. You leave this question for later on. So you need to know exactly question number 1, question number 2. You skip question number 3 and 4, then question number 5. So you need to know exactly before the exam how you're going to answer what question first and what question later. This is called exam techniques and the time management. Time management, you have to finish your exam within the time. And how you do that? That is called time management. So if you are good within these 2 things, then I will say like it's not very difficult to pass this paper. And as I said before, it's a very interesting paper, and you will learn a lot of things from the tax point of view, and that will make you not only a good, like, knowledgeable person for the tax, but also you'll feel so much confidence when you're talking about the tax. Even though if you're an employee, if you're self-employed, you know exactly all the rules is applicable to you. So every time you have to think, I'm that person, I'm earning this amount, so how much tax I need to pay? You calculate the tax from your point of view. All right, let's have a look. So here we can see we have to score 50% and 3 hours exam, enough time to score 50. Definitely, for sure. Then we will have a 15, we have a 3 section, section 1, A, B, and C. Section A will cover 15 objective questions. So 15 questions for 2 each, 30 marks. This is one of the important area that we have to answer, and we have to secure at least 25 from here. And this 25% marks will help me to score 50 very quickly, and I'll be relaxed after I know I already scored 50%. The next one, we have section B. Here we have little bit scenario type question with the objective test. And you can see here 3 questions, 10 marks, and each question will contain 5 subparts. That means under one question, there will be a, for example, question number 1. So under 1, it will be A, B, C, D, E. So it will not only be one question, and you have to be very much knowing detail so that you can answer every single question. So from this 30, you have to score at least 15. So now we have 25 plus 15, that is 40. Now from the last 40, we need only 10% to score. Now how we do that? You can see here, this constructed response. To answer this question, you have to be really know every single area we have in this book. Not only just practicing the question, but know what type of question can come in the exam and how we're going to answer. When you answer, the answer has to be very precise. For example, if the question asks you identify, if the question asks identify, then you don't have to explain. If the question asks you evaluate, if the question asks you explain, if the question asks you discuss, so you have to know the meaning of this thing. So question asks you anything and you just explain, doesn't help. Do not write the unnecessary thing. It will not give you any marks. It is a waste of time. And that's why it says very clearly, do not include unnecessary information. If you keep writing just whatever you want, not going to add any value. So from here, we just need 10%. And as I said to you, if you know exactly how we're going to answer which question first, which question second, which question third, and you know your plan, you know your exam techniques, and that's how you can answer all the question and secure 50% first. Then you can move to the next question to score more and more. And until your time is run out, you can keep answering all the question. Remember that even if you do some workings and if the answer is final answer is not correct, still you get some marks. It's say very clearly here, even if you cannot do all the calculation element, you will still be able to gain marks on the discussion part. For example, if the question asks you any recommendation, if the question asks you like, okay, this will be like, for example, it will be like tax payable or it will be refund. So for example, if the question from VAT, if the question asks you, do we have to pay the VAT or are you going to claim back? Now, for example, if you choose the wrong answer because of the wrong calculation, but if you explain it correctly, for example, if the input VAT is more than the output VAT, you're going to claim back from HMRC. So if you explain it correctly, you'll still get the marks, even though your decision was wrong. Because the examiner understands based on your answer, based on your calculation, you are giving this decision. So it's very important. Do not think like, okay, my calculation is wrong, so it's no point of go further. Don't do it. Keep writing. There's no negative marking for that. So as long as you know how does it work, keep writing. HMRC, the examiner, they don't want to see how good your calculation is. The examiner want to see you know the way how to calculate it and how does it work. So if you know this thing, this paper could be very much interesting paper for you, and you will learn a lot of things about the taxation. You'll feel more confident as an accountant. You will be able to advise your friends and family, and in the future, if you choose the advanced taxation, that will give you more detail about the implication and the application of the taxation system. Now, of course, like this is one of the compulsory paper, you don't have any choice. You have to attempt this paper anyway. But as I said to you, this paper will be very interesting. When you start revising this paper, what you'll do every single time when you finish one chapter, you make a note for that. For example, chapter number 1, you've done 2 activities. And from the 2 activities, let's say one thing is come to your head, or one thing you find like it's not easy for you, or you didn't understand it. Make sure you keep a note for that. You make a note for that. On the paper, you write it down, chapter number 1, page number 3, and this was my problem. Because before the exam, you're going to face the same problem. For that reason, when you finish all the 25 chapter and you see when your note is ready, before the exam, you just revise the note where you struggle, where you feel difficulties. You don't have to revise the whole thing, and you don't have any time to revise the whole thing before the exam. So very important thing is like you need to know how you're going to attempt this exam, know your answer, know what question will be in the exam, so you don't be surprised and you make yourself ready. You already know this area is good for me, I'm very comfortable, this area is difficult for me, so I'll do it later. So you need to make sure you know all of these things so that on the exam day you feel comfortable and you do exam. And this exam, as I said, very interesting. It's a very easy to pass this exam first attempt with a very good score if you know how to do it. So hopefully this information will be helpful for you, and we're going to cover a few chapters. So next session, I'm going to do chapter number 1, do some question, explain something. Hopefully that will be helpful for your exam. Thank you very much for watching.